Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to start out the show today kind of on a sad note. Not kind of, really is a sad note. And there's some potentially happy endings in it as well. But we're going to talk briefly before we get into our phrase of the day and the meat of our show. I have to respond to the fire at the Grand Church, the Cathedral of Notre Dame. I started watching it like a lot of people yesterday when the story first started breaking. And I have to say, man, I was really sad watching it. And I don't really have a particular story that I'm going to highlight today. I just want to give you a few thoughts that I had on it. As I say, it was sad. I saw President Trump's response to it when he was in Wisconsin, I believe, at a scheduled event. And he said he could hardly even do the event because his heart was kind of breaking. I think a lot of people felt that way. Kind of a connection to it directly. A good friend of mine, former chairman of the Republican Party of Florida, Blaise Ingoglia, who is a state representative here in Florida, and as I say, was the former chair during the Trump election, by the way, RPOF chair. His wife and daughter were in France at the time, and as fate would have it, they were in the church and went on the tour, I'm assuming, and literally had just left there minutes, not like evacuated, but literally must have been the last handful of people that left the place before the fire started, because this picture you see here was posted on Blaise's Facebook page. And this was a picture taken from the cell phone of either his wife or daughter, literally as they were walking away from this place. So, thank God nobody was hurt. Now, speculation. I'm not sure I believe in coincidence in this case. I don't want to speculate too far, but I am going to a little bit. Is it a coincidence that this church, this cathedral, this magnificent structure that really, beyond just the symbolism of Christianity, which it obviously is, and certainly to the Catholic Church as well, more specifically, it is a symbol to people who believe in history and humanity and everything around the world. It is one of those places that would be on people's bucket list for sure. It certainly would be on mine. I regret to say I've never had the pleasure or honor of being there, so certainly I hope they can rebuild it. It's never going to be the same, obviously. And before I get more into speculation, the good news from what I'm hearing, and the story's still developing, is that there are parts of it they were able to save, and some of the relics, I don't know the specifics of it, they were able to save, and some of the artwork and all of that, because I know that, for instance, they have the crown of thorns there, which they speculate, or they believe, certainly people of faith believe, that it was the very crown of thorns that Jesus wore on his way to being killed, and also a part of the actual cross from the crucifixion is supposedly there as well. Now, I don't know what the status of them are. I'm hoping they were able to save them. I really don't know. But there is some good news in the sense that some of the areas of the church where they warehouse artifacts and art apparently were saved, and some of the artwork that was actually in the church, from what I understand, they were actually able to get out before it was engulfed by flame. But back to speculation, I don't think... It's hard for me to believe that it's a coincidence that this happened in the holiest of holy weeks for the Christians around the world, and definitely for the Catholic Church and all of that, which this is a symbol of. You put on top of that the fact that this specific church has been the target of previous attacks, some of them somewhat successful, most of them not. And you add into that there's been several hundred churches in the last 2 years vandalized in France in various forms or fashion, and you can't help but wonder what is behind this. Now, I'm hoping, first of all, I hope it's not. I hope it is a coincidence, and I hope it is related to some accident. Now, that doesn't change the facts of the case as far as the outcome of the destruction of the church, and I have every confidence that it's going to be rebuilt to the best of their ability, because there's already people come forward and said they'd donate tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to do it. So I don't have any doubt that it will literally rise from the ashes. So I hope that it's not, because I don't want to add more hatred into the world than there already is. There is more than enough to go around. So I'm not about adding to that. So I hope that it is truly an accident, but I am suspect of it. I'm assuming that many of you out there feel the same way. Now, really what I will speculate on is the lack of speculation. And by that, I mean, I watched some news coverage, and it seemed like that they went out of their way not to speculate that it might be, and I'm just going to say it might be Muslim extremists, Islamic fanatics that had something to do with that. I don't know. But the idea to even approach the conversation about it was like, yeah, you know, that old what's his name, Shepard Smith on Fox News. There was a French political figure on there. His name escapes me at the moment, but it doesn't really matter. And he started talking. Now, this was a French official that started talking about the possibility, and Shepard just cut him off. We're not going to go there. You know, that's kind of fake news. We're real journalism here. He just cut him off. Now, I don't really necessarily have a problem with that. I don't believe that the news should sit there and speculate, but the problem I have is the inconsistency of it. You know, when the shooter in New Zealand happened, and they got any indication that it was a white dude, oh, the speculation was off the chart. It wasn't even speculation. It was certainty that it had to do with MAGA and Trump and everything else. And I could give you countless examples, and you know we're not going to spend a whole show talking about it. But if there was any suspicion at all that it was some right-wing part of France, it would be all over the news. They'd be speculating it. But the possibility that it might be Muslim extremists, they can't talk about that at all. So to me, the hypocrisy is the lack of speculation. And as I say, I'm not an advocate for speculation, but the absolute that they cannot speculate on that, it just shows their true hand. So anyway, if it is extremists of any kind, I hope they are caught and captured and punished to the fullest extent of the law. As I say, I'm hoping it's not, because I do believe in peace on earth, and it is a struggle to get there. And I feel mostly for Christians everywhere, but certainly the people of France, be Christians or not, one thing's for sure, this was an iconic place for France. And you could just hear the response from some of the people there, and there were pictures of people literally crying, mourning as they were watching the spiral come down. So my heart goes out to the French people specifically, but to Christians and people who love history and humanity everywhere. All right, we're going to move on now, and we'll update you on this as facts become available. The phrase of the day, "where fools rush in," is mine, and I looked up a definition of this, and this is the one I came up with. Foolish people make decisions quickly with little serious thought. Amen to that. And this is kind of, fools rush in is a shortened version of the phrase, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. So my subtitle for this first story that is coming to you from the Washington Examiner is Foolish or Ghoulish. Bill Weld joins 2020 race as GOP challenger to Trump, according to the Washington Examiner. Former Massachusetts Governor William Bill Weld announced Monday he is running against President Trump for the Republican nomination for president. And so a lot of you, like Jay, my producer in the back, said, who? I mean, I happen to know who this dude is, and the who is not very good. But I can imagine a lot of people, even people in the know, go, who dat, man? Who dat? Weld revealed that and we're going to tell you who he is in just a moment. Weld revealed that he formed a presidential exploratory committee back in February, but Monday's announcement makes his intra-party challenge official. So he formed an exploratory committee. So what the hell were they exploring? Think about that. Think about an exploratory committee for anybody thinking about running against President Trump in a Republican primary. You talk about fool's gold, man. That is. But what was their conclusion? So you're telling me, Mr. Weld, this right off the bat probably disqualifies you from being president, by the way, that you did a true exploratory committee and you found somewhere out there the results showed that you actually had a shot to win? I mean, who do you really believe that he believes that he has a shot to win? Because think about it. If he doesn't believe that, then what is the motive? Because why would you run for office if you don't really believe you have a shot? And Bill Weld is an intelligent guy. I don't like his politics. I never have. And I'll get more in depth in that in a minute. But he's no dummy. He's been a very successful person. And so he has to know with his exploratory committee that was probably run in his mama's basement or something, if she's still alive, I don't know. But there's no way that a legitimate exploratory committee could have come to the conclusion that he has any shot whatsoever to actually win. And so therefore he has to have some ulterior motive. And we're going to talk about that as this article unfolds. But Wells said in a statement, and I'm probably giving more gravitas because I think I could probably give a better speech than him. So I'll put a little gravitas behind it. In these times of great political strife, when major parties are entrenched in their win at all costs battles, the voices of the American people are being ignored and our nation is suffering. So I bet he isn't as passionate as that, but because if you've seen him, one thing he lacks is passion. But think about it. He's what he said, the voice of whose voices are being ignored? By who? The voice, I can tell you, there's one group of voices that are being ignored, at least by the mainstream media, and certainly guys like Weld and these never Trumper rhinos. Voice of millions of people who elected the president. There you go. That's your answer, sir. That's your answer. So you're saying that you're the answer to all these voices that are being suffering and not heard from? Give me a break, man. You got to have an ego to run for president, let alone governor of Massachusetts, what he's been. But if you actually think, sir, Mr. Weld, that you are the answer to the statement you just made, you are beyond egotistical. You are flat out delusional, which seems to be happening a lot these days. Maybe you should run for the Democratic, join the rest of the delusional fools that are running in the Democratic Party. But he goes on to say, it's time to return to the principles of Lincoln: equality, dignity, and opportunity for all. Man, if you really believe that, and I'm with you, brother, I believe that I agree with that statement 100%. That's why you should join me, sir, on the Trump train, baby. If you really believe the crap you're spewing, then you are a Trumpster. You're not, so you don't believe it. He says there's no greater cause on earth than to preserve what truly makes America great. Well, I tell you one thing it's not, Jay. It's not more swamp rats. I mean, think about it. We got the king of swamp rats that followed a similar path of Mr. Weld, and that is none other than the great Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney, man, now I've dubbed him King Swamp Rat. He and Weld, they're like, peas out of the same pod. And the Massachusetts pod, just what we need, more Massachusetts governors. And we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. But Weld, 73, is the first major, I love how this article says this, the first major Republican challenger to Trump's presidency. Major. Bill Weld is the first major one. I don't know, man. That's a bit of a stretch. No disrespect, but maybe a little, to Mr. Weld. And now, he didn't say that. But for the Examiner, which I like to even insinuate that this guy's like a major, just because he was governor of Massachusetts makes him a major figure. How major was Mitt Romney? He couldn't win dog catcher, but he won in Utah. Hey, people out there in Utah, I love you, man. Why don't you recall this dude right now, Mitt Romney? He's already proven what I told y'all along he was going to be, King Swamp Rat. It's up to you. Why don't y'all do something about it? But, well, let's talk a little bit about the man himself and his past, because it's actually impressive to a point. He was appointed by President Ronald Reagan to serve as U.S. Attorney and served in that role from 81 to 86. Weld served for the following 2 years as the U.S. Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division under Reagan. So that's impressive. Weld was later elected to 2 terms as the Republican governor of Massachusetts, serving from 1991 to 1997. He was reelected by the largest margin in the state's history in 1994. Now, that makes him what? What does that make him? It makes him one hell of a swamp rat. Because when you're a Republican and you get, how much of a rhino and swamp rat do you have to be to win by the largest margin ever in Massachusetts? I don't think he's a Trump guy. I don't think he's a MAGA guy. I don't think he's even a conservative guy. Because he actually, in his video that he put out, he brags about his tax cuts that he did in Massachusetts. And that might be something. Then he turns around and brags about how he was one of the early people for LGBT rights and all of that. And of course, Mitt Romney, as we know, was the godfather of Obamacare, a former Massachusetts rhino governor that ran for president. And I suspect you will have even less luck than Mr. Romney, because you ain't getting the nomination, that's for sure. But this is not Wells. Now think about this. This is going to prove to you just how much of a rat snake in the grass this dude really is. This is not Wells' first foray into national politics. He was former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson, another one who? Gary Johnson, running mate in the Libertarian ticket during the 2016 presidential election, whom he betrayed, by the way, and we're going to get deeper into that in just a moment. So let me set this up for you. So Gary Johnson, and I kid about it, but he ran for Libertarian presidential candidate. He was the nominee of the Libertarian Party. And Weld was his pick to be vice president, which should have disqualified him from being a Libertarian candidate, period, because Weld is anything but a Libertarian. But he went on to betray Johnson in a very bad way. If there's any good way to betray, I don't know. As it became clear that Johnson was not likely to make much of a dent in the race between Trump and Democratic competitor Hillary Clinton, so why pick him? Weld, check this out, this is as he was the vice presidential candidate for Gary Johnson, Weld began to draw comparisons between the two major candidates, and despite not technically endorsing Clinton, spoke in favor of her over Trump. So basically, while he's running as vice presidential candidate on Libertarian ticket picked by Gary Johnson, he is actually saying that he would prefer Hillary Clinton over Trump. So he's not talking about, hey, I'd be better than both of them. Gary Johnson is the man, and he'd be better, and I'll serve with him proudly, and we'll be better than all those other two combined. I mean, that's what he should have been campaigning on, right? But instead, during the time of the campaign, he actually propped up Hillary Clinton. So obviously, this guy is a very principled dude, right? He supports Hillary, but now he runs as a Republican. And that's going to help him a great deal in the primary. That's surely he's listening to the American people, because according to him, what the American people, I guess, want is somebody to run as a Republican who supports Hillary Clinton. I mean, over Trump. That is his recipe.
He needs to get his money back from that one group or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but really, Jay, what it's about really is it has nothing to do with about winning. It has to do with propping himself up. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. But mainly it has to do with trying to tear the president down. Because I say, this guy knows. His exploratory committee, can you imagine? We're exploring, and I talked to my wife, and she said, yeah, I'd rather have you than Trump. I doubt she actually said that. But he's... So really what this guy, could he be pursuing a book deal? I mean, could he just be bored? I mean, for God's sakes, Mr. Weld, if you're an old geriatric dude and you're that bored, just go be a Walmart greeter. Do us all a favor and hang out at Walmart and say, good to see you. Now, I guess in fairness, that's probably offensive to Walmart greeters everywhere, because who wants to see that dude there? But Johnson-Weld ticket ended up taking, this is the Libertarian ticket in 2016, 3.8% of the national vote, the largest share of votes the Libertarian Party has ever received in a presidential election. So you got to ask, well, I don't think they would have won, but how well would they have done? How well would Mr. Johnson have done if he actually had somebody on the ticket that supported him? Instead of Hillary Clinton? And here's the thing, and this is a side note to libertarians out there, because I know I've heard from you, and I got a respect overall for the Libertarian Party. A lot of what I believe personally, especially in certain types of social issues and all, and we can talk, I talk about them all the time, but I've got a streak of libertarian in me. There's no question about it. I just don't think they actually can be successful, and I'm 100% Trump. But there's a lot of libertarians that actually support Trump. But I want to just say to libertarians, if you're actually thinking about running for office out there, far be it for me to actually tell you what to do, but I want to make a suggestion. And this, I'm being very serious here. If you want to make a difference in your community, and we need libertarian thought in our community, why, you know one area that you could really make a difference, because most places it's nonpartisan? Why not run for school board? Run for school board and make a difference where it really counts with the kids of the future. I would encourage anyone really that is conservative, but libertarians, because they always seem to want to run for like president or governor or something, which they got no shot right now to win. And I know they're trying to build a party. I respect that. I absolutely do. But I actually think if you could run for, because Bernie, take a page out of the Bernie Sanders group. They actually are running for lower offices and in some places succeeding. And so take a page out of that. I'd much rather have some libertarians running for school board than some Bernieites, that's for sure. But anyway, something to consider. Well changed his political affiliation back to the Republican Party in February, around the time he decided to start a presidential exploratory committee. Does that remind you of anyone? How about Bernie Sanders? I mean, he turns into an independent, and then he's a Democrat, and he's back, and he's back, and he's back. I mean, both of these guys, Weld and Bernie, have a lot in common in that they will put their finger to the wind like Bernie. And there's another finger he'd probably give most of us there. But anyway, he's putting the finger to the wind. Here's Weld's exploratory committee. I felt the breeze. I'm in. He switches back and forth. Despite the odds, Republicans like former Florida Governor Jeb Bush have urged Republican primary challenge against Trump in 2020. What a surprise. Are you surprised? Man, what a surprise. Jeb Bush is chiming in. He hasn't endorsed Weld. He's probably waiting to see if John Kasich, maybe Jeb Bush is exploring something. You imagine Jeb Bush, man, is it time for another Bush? Bird in the bush or something like that. I don't know. But is Weld a fool? I don't think so. Because you know why he's not a fool? He'd be foolish if he thought he could actually win. I don't think for a minute he believes that, contrary to his exploratory committee. But he's not a fool. He's more of a stooge than a fool. And for people like the Koch brothers, I don't know if they're behind him or not. It would not surprise me. They'll get behind anybody that's anti-Trump, that's for sure. This guy is a swamp rat, establishment Republican when it suits him. And the only reason he's winning, besides running, he's not winning, running for president, besides maybe a book deal, is to try to harm Donald Trump. And therefore, he's really trying to help Bernie Sanders or whoever, whatever whack job comes out of the 2020 race for the Democratic primary. And we're going to jump right into that right now. My title to this is Fools Rush for Your Gold, but Not Theirs. I watched last night I watch a lot of things so you don't have to, but I watched Fox's town hall of Bernie Sanders. And I'm going to make a few comments about that. But first, before we do, I want to play a short video clip of one segment of Bernie Sanders, and then we're going to talk specifically about that, and that's probably all you really need to know about it. Can we play that, Jay?
Your taxes do show that you're a millionaire. You did make $1 million in 2016, 2017. You're right, the 561 in 2018. But your marginal tax rate was 26% because of President Trump's tax cuts. So why not say, you know, I'm leading this revolution. I'm not going to take those.
Come on, we're doing. I paid the taxes that I owe. And by the way, why don't you get Donald Trump up here and ask him how much he pays in taxes?
What? You want the definition of an awkward pause? That's it. Hey, Bernie, I got to give him, they put him on the spot. First of all, I give Bernie some credit for showing up to this. And, you know, he brought some of his stooges or fools in there, and they cheered for him on various different things. But Bernie, right there, man, the Democrats cannot argue about taxes because, hey, if you really believe in all this stuff, if you truly believe in it, why don't you just do what Brett Baer says and pay your fair share? You can donate all your money. You know, the tax day was yesterday, which is interesting that they held it on that. Hope you got your taxes in, by the way. I did, by the way. You know, but Bernie could donate. You can donate your entire salary. You could donate more than you make to the federal government. Believe me, they will take it. They absolutely will. But notice the hesitations, man. You know why he hesitated? Because he doesn't. Because basically, and this is something that all of these Democrats will fall prey to, they don't truly believe what it is they're preaching. They believe it for you. Now, Bernie is sincere when he believes that millionaires, billionaires ought to pay more, that everybody ought to pay more. He absolutely believes that. But when he has a chance to do it himself, what do you expect? You really think that this guy who was the first one ready to come out the gate saying, I'm a democratic socialist, this guy, by the way, who had his honeymoon dancing around naked. We ain't going to show you that video because I have sympathy for you. Dancing around half naked in Moscow, drunk on his ass. I mean, for his honeymoon of all places. Comrade Bernie, these guys, Ocasio-Cortez, all these, they are perfect communists because one of the main things you need to have the ability, the talent, it takes talent to convince people. You have to be, if you're going to, and let me just put this out. I talked about libertarians running for school board. If you're a communist, no matter where you're listening, and you want to be a good, true communist leader, the very first skill you have to adapt is to be able to convince people to do what I say and not what I do. Because that is the heart of the communist, to be a communist leader. You have to live like I tell you to live, but not like I live. Because believe me, Bernie don't want anyone living like he lives unless they're part of the Politburo or whatever. But Trump tax returns. He talks about Trump's tax returns. Now, I started to wonder what President Trump actually might feel about this. I think we might have a clip that tells you exactly what Trump might be feel about this.
The Democrats have to now decide whether they will continue defrauding the public with ridiculous bullshit.
Thank you, Mr. President. I knew, as always, you would come through, sir. Bernie, man, let me just tell you, this whole thing with Trump's tax returns, and I got to tell you, I was met out in the hall a couple of days ago by a gentleman that works around this area detailing cars. And he came in and he said, you know, I heard a part of your show for the first time. I was listening out in the hall, and you made this comment about Trump's tax returns, and it really just made sense to me. So I'm going to make the same comment. First of all, thank you for doing that. Spread the word for me. And I told him that at the time. But he made the comment, he commented on this quotation, so to speak, from me. I'm going to tell you exactly what is in Trump's tax returns, without a doubt, without a doubt. In Trump's tax returns, you're going to find, because Trump has said this himself, and I take him at his word, you're going to find that he, and this is really shocking, right? That he tries to make as much money as he possibly can and pay as little taxes as the law legally allows him to. That's it. That's the beginning and the end. And guess what, out there, snowflakes? If you're not trying to do the same thing, then you are a fool. Period. If you're not, let me just say that.
Look what you've done! I'm melting!
Because if I melt you, you deserve to be melted. But let me just tell you, any American, to me, this is the most patriotic thing you could do. And it's capitalism, by the way, which I know is a bad boogie word. But if you're out there and let's put the opposite out there. If you're trying to make as little money as you possibly can, and on top of that, pay the government as much as you possibly can, what would that be? Because that's what Bernie would have you believe, that Donald Trump should have been a pauper and paid $1 billion in taxes on top of it. I mean, give me a break, man. Pay as little, make as much as you can, pay as little as you legally can, period. There's your total tax consultant. If you don't get nothing else out of the show, please get that, because your life will be a hell of a lot better if you are. But Bernie talks about his tax return. First of all, the guy's never had a job but for the government. His first paying job basically was being mayor of his hometown in Vermont. That's it. And since then, and he talked about his resume, and his resume doesn't include, working for a living other than he's been on the government. That's his whole resume. He even talked about how he's the most qualified because of his governmental experience, man. But so it's just crazy. It's crazy. Oh, and another thing he said there, and you hear these progressive Democrats, these communist Democrats like him say this all the time because they're talking about how to pay for something. And one phrase they will throw out all the time, and I wish someone, whether it be Fox News or heaven forbid ABC in the debate, because I guarantee you're going to hear this phrase over the next year and a half from these progressives over and over again, and never, I wish they could come on the show so I could ask them this question, because they say it and they never get rebutted. You'll hear them say, well, how are we going to pay for Medicare for all? And Bernie or any of you could just fill in the blank. They'll say, well, we're the richest nation in the world, or we're the richest nation on the planet. And before they say anything, I want to say, well, how'd we get there? If true, how did we become the richest nation in the history of the earth? It damn sure wasn't following your bullshit. It was because of the capitalist system. That is how we got there. So if true, and it is true, we are the richest nation, not only now, but that has ever existed as far as we can tell, with the most prosperous people under that ever. There's no question about that. I don't dispute that at all. But my question would be, how did we get there?
And why are you trying to change it?
Yeah, and why are you trying to change it? If true, then why are you trying to screw us? It's just, but no one. Have you heard anyone ever ask that question of them? Even on Fox News, they didn't ask that question. How'd we get there? So, that's a question I would ask them, because I've told you before with the Green New Deal, I'm going to ask them, do you believe in the Green New Deal? No, show of hands. Well, then how'd you get here? If it wasn't on a jackass, then you truly are a jackass. But anyway, check it out. You don't really have to. I just summed it up for you. But Bernie, he's a very great orator. He's pretty good on the stump. But his ideas, not only are they shallow and hollow, but if actually implemented, would be disastrous for this. It would do the very thing that he's bragging about. It would destroy the richest nation on earth. It would absolutely devastate it.
Fini.
It would be fini.
It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of...
It will be if Bernie gets elected. All right, now here's one. This next story comes to you from the LA News. It's called, not the LA Times, but I guess an online publication, the LA News. And I can't believe I'm saying this. My subtitle for it is Cher is no fool. Cher's no fool. This is coming from the LA News. We've really passed tipping point of danger, says Reverend Andy Bales on the homeless crisis in LA. And so we're going to show Cher's tweet. Check that out. Cher basically said in response to the president talking about, well, we just put all these sanctuary cities. We're going to call your bluff, baby. We're going to give you all the sanctuary you can have. We'll give you all these illegals. We'll just bust them right there and let them go right in your street, San Fran or LA. And Cher, logically, when she wasn't I guess she's no longer marrying the pizza delivery guy, and Greg Allman's dead, so maybe she's got a brain cell or two that is kind of reviving back, man. She says, how the hell are we going to pay and take care of all these new sanctuary people, all these we can't even take care of the homeless people here. I'm sure she feels bad as she chauffeur drives by all the tent city people in L.A. But back to the story, Billy Bob tells me. In case you haven't met, this is my psychic sidekick, Billy Bob Bass. He keeps me straight on the show all the time. He's the one that feeds me lines like this by Cher, by the way. But he doesn't say much, but he's got a Twitter twat handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. And Cher's kind of reminded me that I need to step up my Twitter game, because me and her got into it a little bit last year. It was really short, but we'll talk about that more on another day. Maybe I can revive my Twitter twat war with Cher. But Los Angeles County alone, there are 41,000 transients living in the streets. And these statistics, I can tell you as someone who has dealt with statistics at the government level, these bad statistics, if you want to call it that, are always worse than what they say. It's probably like they say there's only 11 to 12 million illegal aliens in the country. Yeah, right. But anyway, however many they are, these transient people, they're homeless people. Look at that, man. Look at that picture. And that's L.A. I don't know if that's L.A., but it might be San Francisco. It's all over the place. Think about San Francisco, man. And I don't say this with any glee or whatever, because I love San Francisco. It used to be the jewel of the country. Now it's the stool. I mean, to the point that they literally have to have a stool, otherwise known as poop map. We talked about that before. Check out our shows, by the way. If you're new to the show, you want to catch up, there's a couple of ways. You can go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook site, like it, share it with others. I appreciate that. We're about to cross that 10,000 mark. We just give them a push. My friend Bo Diddley, that's another story. He said one time, John Martin, just give him a push. Me and Bo were good friends. We'll talk about that another day. But you can also go to my YouTube channel, John Martin Talks, johnmartintalks.tv. Of course, you can see it on a growing family of webs or Facebook sites like Citizens for Trump. And what's the other? Deplorable Resistance. Yeah, so shout out to you guys out there, and more to come. And if you have a Facebook site that you would like to broadcast our show on, just contact us. We're open to it as long as we, agree and fit in with you. But I want to give shout outs to my good friends at Citizens for Trump and Deplorable Resistance. Good morning, and you are fools rushing in to hear this fool, right? But these 41,000. If it's accurate, let me tell you, it's brought to you by the Democratic Party. And more is to come. Coming soon to a neighborhood near you. Brought to you by the Democratic Party. Homeless people with the mumps. I mean, that's what you need. And for Reverend Andy Bales, let me say, first of all, I don't know. I've heard this of this guy. I've nothing negative to say about him whatsoever. I appreciate anyone who is trying to make a difference. But he points out some interesting things here. For Reverend Andy Bales of the Union Rescue Mission, he says the homeless crisis has reached a breaking point. Breaking point. I've been hearing that a lot from dems, it seems, lately. The New York Times, we did a story a couple of days ago, last week, I think, where the New York Times talked about how the border was at the breaking point. You hear these dems saying it. So they're saying all this stuff. It's a phrase, but it don't mean a lot. Because they don't do it don't mean a lot because they don't do squat. I mean, think about it. They don't do anything. But Bale said, at this point, I'm very concerned about everyone in LA because we've really passed the tipping point of danger because we've left so many people for so many years to be devastated on the streets. And he's right about that. There's no doubt that he's right about that. Now, some people, and I have to say, I have a lot of experience dealing with homelessness because I worked for 15 years in a drug treatment center. And so I've dealt with this type of stuff on a professional level and a personal level. Let me just tell you, I haven't said this in a while, but there's several categories of homelessness. There are people who are truly, were one disaster away from not being able to pay their mortgage. And they're homeless by maybe some poor decisions, maybe some things that happened outside, not good financial planning, or maybe just something happened that overwhelmed them. Those people, if they can be helped quickly to get back into housing, can turn it around pretty quickly because they were just working poor. There's another group of people who, by other choices like alcoholism, drug addiction, that type of thing, find themselves on the street. They too can be turned around. It takes a little bit more. It takes a willingness to admit you got a problem. If you ever want to talk about that, like I say, I've had my own issues and was probably the only reason I wasn't homeless is by the grace of God and the help of people who love me. But I know a little bit about it, and I've seen people overcome the greatest obstacles you could ever imagine. The greatest obstacle, by the way, is yourself, but that's another story. And then there's another group of people that choose to be homeless. Really, they do. There are really urban commandos. I know some people that they just are, they don't believe in society. They're anarchists, whatever, not necessarily politically. They just don't want to be fit in. They even work. I know people who are living in tents, believe it or not, that actually choose to do that. They're urban kind of commandos, I call them. They're not that many, but there are some. And then there's another category that I have the absolute most sympathy for. There are people who are truly mentally ill. Now, drug addiction to a certain extent, and alcoholism is a mental illness as well. Sometimes that's their solution. But I'm not really talking about. There are like people who are paranoid schizophrenic, stuff like that truly are homeless. Some of them are dangerous, some of them are not. They can't take care of themselves. And this is one thing that we have really done as a society a disservice to, and that is this idea, and this is where do-gooders come in, meaning well, but don't think about the consequences. They don't want people to be institutionalized. And I'm telling you from a fact, and you already know this if you've dealt with it all, there are people that the only solution to their situation is to be institutionalized. They might actually be able to come out of it, but it would have to be under a constant supervision, but they're never going to pull themselves up by their bootstraps because they don't have any mentally. That's the thing. It's not about the physical. They just, for whatever reason, are broken. And they truly exist. And those are the people we really should be focusing. We should be focusing on the people who are just down on their luck, for one thing, trying to get them back as quickly as possible. And those that are mental health, trying to get them off the streets. And the rest, I don't know that there is a solution for the others. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents for what it's worth. But here's the thing that gets me. Is there a direct coalition? I'm just asking this question. I think there is, between progressives that are running a city, Democrats, and homelessness. Because I've seen it firsthand right here. What'd you say, Jay? It's unscientific, but I guarantee you, you wouldn't have to stay in a Holiday Inn. Now I could advertise for you to know this. There is a coalition between homelessness and Democrats and progressive leadership. There just is. Look at any major city or any minor, right here, we got a huge, you wouldn't believe the homeless situation that we have in Gainesville, Florida, where I'm broadcasting from right now. The great home in University of Florida, one of the most liberal places on the planet. Right here, I've lived in a blue wave my whole life, and they relish the home. It's like they can't spend enough money on them. But the one story I'll tell you real quick, I've told some others, but I'll tell you this was interesting. They opened up this new homeless shelter that was going to be the end of homelessness and everything else. And the local TV station went out there to interview people. I'll never forget this, man. And they interviewed this guy. Said, "What do you think about this place?" And I'll let the name remain anonymous at the moment. But the guy literally looked into the camera and said, "I've been to homeless centers all over the country, and this is the best one I've ever seen." And I was like, what? He really just had to play it back. Yeah, that dude, I've been to homeless centers all over the country, and this is the best one I've ever seen. So come on down. That's what I look like, an advertisement to come on. But back to the story. We've left far too many people for far too long on the streets. 41,000 in Los Angeles County alone. The longer you leave people, this is the Reverend Bale saying this, the longer you leave people on the streets, the more dangerous to the folks you leave on the streets. But what we don't realize is the more dangerous it is to everyone else. And he's talking, there's several incidents they use where homeless people came into contact with other people, and there was some violence. Violence is growing in LA around the homeless thing. But he said, adding, it has been hoping for change of heart in Los Angeles about the crisis. Now, is he, Reverend Bales, is he foolish to think the Democrats have a solution? I think so. I don't know Mr. Bales' politics. As I say, I'm not being critical of him. From what I've seen, he truly believes in trying to help people. And hey, I'm all about that. I got nothing negative to say about him. But I would ask him if I had a chance to talk to him. Are you really, sir, saying you believe that the Democrats, the progressives that are running like LA, have a solution? Because if you do believe that, then you are being foolish. It's a fool's errand. They don't have any solution. You want me to tell you why the Democrats don't have any solution? I can make a strong case that they really don't give a damn about these people. They just want them for political issue. But that aside, let me give you a couple examples. They're a little bit busy. Mr. Bales, let me just tell you, Reverend Bales, the Democrats are a little bit busy to be dealing with this homeless thing because they're too busy being jackasses. That's what they're too busy living up to their party logo. How about Russia, Russia, Russia? You know, everything's Russia. We're not going to rush into the homeless situation as long as there's Russia on the table.
Or the Green New Deal making us all homeless.
Yeah, the Green New Deal. Jackasses on jackass. Their solution to the homelessness, as Jay just said, is for everybody to be homeless. That would be it.
Equality for all.
Equal outcome. That's what they want. But how about the fact that they out there, these do-gooders out in California, in Hollywood, West Hollywood, which is connected to L.A., they appointed as mayor, honorary mayor and citizen of the day, gave the keys to the city to none other than Stormy Daniels. How's that working out for you? Hi, I'm Stormy, and I'm here to help the homeless. Yeah, right. I'm coming to a pole dance near you. I don't know, man. But maybe they ought to listen to what Trump said, because Trump might have a solution getting back to Stormy Daniels, because he paid her $130,000 to keep her mouth shut. It wasn't possible, apparently. Kind of like, you know, and other presidents in the past, people couldn't keep their mouth shut. I mean, think about it, man. Monica Lewinsky. If she'd have just kept her mouth shut, that wouldn't have happened to Bill Clinton, poor old fella that he is. I don't blame Bill. Come on, Bill. Feel sorry for President Bill. He didn't get peed on by prostitutes, although he probably wanted to. His wife invented that on Trump. Why didn't she just give it to Bill? Like, here's a Christmas gift. I was thinking about lying about Trump, but instead I'm buying it for you, Bill. That's what she should have done, but she don't care about him either. But Stormy Daniels, how about taxes? We just saw Bernie. He's too worried about... How am I deer? You know about a deer in the headlights, man? When they ask old Bernie, go back and look at that video. You look at the show where Bernie's up there going, when old Brett Baer said, why didn't you volunteer to pay the taxes? And he went like, I got an idea for Trump. I got an idea about this. If Bernie actually is the nominee because he's leading, by the way, he's leading across the way in the Democratic polling. I got an idea for President Trump. Why do you know? Because he donates his salary to various different organizations or governmental agencies, right? So why don't, if Bernie is the nominee, and feel free to use this, Mr. President, why don't he take one time and say, you know, Bern, man, I take you at your word that you want to help all these people. So the difference between the tax cut that you took, that I made, that you just, you know, stuffed in your old pocket there, I'm going to pay the difference myself. Have a press conference and pay Bernie's taxes. That's what he ought to do, man. Anyway, but how about impeach 45? Impeach 45? You hadn't heard much about that since the Mueller investigation, right? But maybe they're just too busy attacking MAGA hat wearing people. You know, I mean, Chicago with all the problems they got, they attacked that Smollett fella. I knew that thing smelled from the beginning. They're attacking MAGA hat wearing people all over the planet here, basically all over the United States, man. So maybe they're just a bit busy, Mr. Bales, to actually pay real attention to, or maybe, and I'm just, my speculation, I'm just speculating here, maybe they really don't care. Maybe all they don't want a solution to the homelessness because that would be an issue they can't run on. So they run on promises. When was the last time you had a Republican mayor in L.A.? When was the last time? All they do is they get further and further to the left, and the problem gets worse and worse.
And just further and further in debt.
Right. And there is a coalition between them. Maybe L.A. itself will be homeless. Build that wall, baby. Better for us all. Start with California. All right, next story we're going to do. We're about out of time, but we got about 10 or 15 minutes left. Kind of a theme that I've had. If you've tuned into our show in the past, you'll see this. But if not, you know, I consider myself a little bit funny. I know you're too little. I don't know. I want to be, one of the goals of my show is to be seriously entertaining. But let's put it this way. I'm a big fan of comedy, real comedy. And one of the things I've noticed, you know, President Trump has destroyed comedy. He really has. I have to say, I'm not blaming him to a point, but comedy now has become so Trump derangement syndrome that it is totally PC. It was already on this slippery slope before President Trump won election. But since his election, it went off the cliff, man. There's nothing out there anymore. You can't watch comedy on TV. Between the combination of the political correctness trajectory it was on, combined with the Trump derangement syndrome, man, it is just dead. It is gone. And this next article coming to you from the Wall Street Journal, my subtitle of this is Help Wanted. Help Wanted. Fools Needed. Monty Python's Terry Gilliam wishes comedy hadn't changed, and this is according to the Wall Street Journal. Now, if you're wondering who Terry Gilliam is, he was not only a white dude, he was an American, a member of the Monty Python troupe. He was like the sixth guy on there. So go back and watch some. He ended up directing a lot of their stuff, by the way, and a lot of other good stuff. He is an extremely talented guy, but they got a Yankee from from America to prop up Monty Python or be a part of it. I'm a big fan of Monty Python. The comedy veteran and director of The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, that's a new movie, 30 years in the making, by the way, that is coming out later this month. And I can't wait to see it. Hopefully it'll be true to some of his others. We can't laugh at anybody because it causes offense. That's what Mr. Gilliam is saying. He said we can't laugh anymore at anybody because we're so afraid that we're going to be offending somebody. Now 78 years old, Mr. Gilliam became famous decades ago as the American member of the British comedy group Monty Python. He went on to direct films blending fantasy and reality, including Time Bandits. All these movies are great, by the way. The Fisher King, deals with homeless as well. Brazil, I don't think I actually saw that one. Considered a classic for the comic depiction of Orwellian society. I need to check that out because I am a big fan of his work, man. Some of them, when I look back, I didn't really realize he was the director of them, but I look back on it, and he has quite an impressive array of work and pretty funny. Mr. Gilliam spoke with the Journal about the importance of imagination and how comedy and its reception have changed. Not for the better since the Python days, and I would wholeheartedly agree. He was asked the question, is there a difference between British and American humor? And I thought his response was pretty interesting and kind of enlightened me. He said, I've always felt British are very good at laughing at themselves. The Americans are better at laughing at other people. And, excuse me, I think he's right about that. I personally like to do both. I make fun of myself all the time, man. I mean, it's pretty easy, right? Look at the mirror. I said, get the man a nurse. It's a sunburn or suntan, by the way. If you're tuning into my show, my blood pressure's fine. It does rise a little bit during the show, but this is mostly from being the old salty dog. I like to drop a line in the Gulf of Mexico for hours at a time. But other people, I like this part where he talks about Americans like to make fun of other people. And that's true. It's absolutely true. You think about our comics, they do a lot of that. But maybe that's why comedy is dead in this country, because we are afraid to think about, if he's right, and this guy's an expert, maybe what has killed American comedy is this idea that we have to be so sensitive to other people's feelings. I mean, my God, man, that's one thing. I'm a big South Park fan, as you guys probably know. I love South Park because they make fun of everybody. And I know I've reached the peak of my profession if they start making fun of me. I can't wait to the day that the Monty Python, I hope they come back, but the South Park, I'd be so honored if they cut me to the quick, man. I mean, that would mean I'm there. I just don't understand why we can't make fun of ourselves. It's just crazy that we can't tell any kind of joke without offending someone. And comedy, my observation of this, it's been totally compartmentalized. In other words, you have to, if you're a gay black woman, you have to have a comment that is a gay black woman. And she, in order to be funny. If you're an old white dude, you got to have, I guess, comment for old white dude. One thing about us old white dudes, we laugh at everything. We laugh at everything. But he goes on to say, I still think it's pretty true, but it's changing because now we can't laugh at anybody because it causes offense. Yeah, sure. This is about men.
And I just want to say to the men of this country, just shut up.
By the way, that's Maisie Hirano with some helium in her voice, I think. There's a kind of egotism out there, he says. Oh, they were making fun of me? Never heard of you. I'm making fun of an idea. So what he's saying here is that the jokes that they used to tell, they weren't talking about Joe Smith over here or John Martin over here. They're talking about the overall part of it. He says, I don't even know you. How am I going to offend you if I don't even know you? I'm just talking about a situation. I'm making fun of the idea. And if you can't See, the thing is, we need to adapt a little bit of British humor if he's right. In order for American humor to be funny again, we have to be willing to laugh at ourselves, man. We have lost so much, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. You were angry, this writer asked him, he said, you were angry when the head of BBC Comedies recently said that if they were, and really listen to this, I'm going to have to explain it probably, if they were doing Monty Python now, and there's actually been talk about them coming back, but he's talking about a new troupe, Python now, it wouldn't be 6 white Oxbridge blokes. In other words, what this guy, head of the BBC, probably a white dude himself, it wouldn't enough. Monty Python would have to be mixed group of people. I'm not opposed to that, but to me, the only criteria for forming a comedy troupe is if you're funny.
Be funny. Come on.
Be funny. Color, man. What the hell does color have to do with it, man?
Oh my gosh, he's black. He's suddenly funny.
Yeah, I mean,
no.
I mean, Chris Rock is hilarious, not because he's black. And think about it. He makes mockery of himself and makes fun of everybody, including black. He's funny because he's funny. You know, he looks a little funny, but that ain't got nothing to do with his blackness. It has to do with the fact that he looks about like a pencil. But anyway, what does color have to do with humor? I don't get it, man. But let me this is a statement. I hate to make this statement, but PC equals the death of comedy. It is absolutely. If there was ever a time for Captain Whitebread, it might be now. You know, I can be out there, because I've always thought, like, for movies, let's put a movie, I thought there should be a position in Hollywood that of this sucks position, where you're watching like a movie. They pay all these millions of dollars. How many times have you seen a movie that fits this bill? You're watching the movie, and right there, kind of midway through it, you're going, man, this movie sucks. And you're wondering, wasn't there anybody in the group that just said, hey, excuse me, this sucks? They desperately need a this sucks guy in Hollywood. He would be like overwhelmed with work now, because most of what they produce absolutely sucks. But they need that. But they need that for comedy too, right? You know, Nick, you suck. Get out of here. But Captain Whitebread is willing to do that. It wasn't particular. He goes on to talk about this comment about this BBC guy making him angry. Check my time. I'm doing all right. He said, I wasn't particularly angry. I just played angry. The ideas that were already excluded because the world has changed. And I love this part right here, because I feel the same way, sir. He said, I'm tired of being, as a white male, blamed for everything that's wrong in the world. So now I want you to call me Loretta. He says, I'm a black lesbian in transition. And I'm thinking, me too, baby. Me too. It's a new Me Too moment. Now, I'm not necessarily a black lesbian. I could channel one if it's to my benefit. But me too, man. I am tired of being blamed for everything that's wrong in your life. Everything that's wrong in the world. You know, old white dudes have committed many sins. There ain't no doubt about it. And I'm still sinning in the sense that I'm a culture appropriation king. If you got some culture worth appropriating it, I'm coming for it. I guarantee it. But this idea that we are the scourge of everything, it's no solution there. So what do you want to do? You really believe, and there's some out there that really believe we could just wipe away. Think about this. If we wiped away every thread of whiteness in this world, let alone this country, what would happen to Barack Obama? He'd be gone.
Generations of people, older people, who were born and bred and marinated in it, in that prejudice and racism, and they just have to die.
So according to Oprah, Obama has to be half dead. I'm white. We could call, that would be it. Maybe we could do like Batman and Robin. I could be Captain Whitebread, and I got Obama half dead. Think about that.
Not have died in vain. I'm not quite dead, sir.
Well, we're almost out of time, man. He played that. Let me put this last part on here, and we'll kind of call it a day. They asked him, this comes from Life of Brian. The Monty Python film, if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. When Eric Idle's character, whose name is Stan, says, I want you to call me Loretta. I want to be a woman. People now might take offense at that, and when offense becomes so easy, it takes the fun out of offending. Comedy is dead, and maybe like Jay just played, I hope not. He says here, he says, could you get an irreverent film like Life of Brian made today? And my simple answer is no. You couldn't. You couldn't get, one of the great comedy movies of all time is Blazing Saddles. You couldn't get that movie made today. There is no way in the world.
Well, the white women that.
And let me just tell you that I'll conclude with this statement. These are my words. We are truly, truly foolish to let this happen. We're letting this happen, and we're truly foolish to do it. And I'll say this to people across the political spectrum. I don't care what side of politics you come down on. This political correctness is killing us in general. It's killing comedy. And let me just tell you, without laughter, what the hell is the point? I mean, think about it. There's enough gloom and doom in life already. Without laughter, what do we have? What is the purpose of life if you don't have some laughter? So, I mean, this really, that's why I keep bringing this up as kind of an overriding theme. I want to be seriously entertaining, because without it, what's the point? And let me tell you what really breaks my heart is so many young people, because I've seen young people that actually get into Monty Python and they're like, wow. But a lot of them don't understand it. They can't laugh. I mean, there's a reason why, like Chris Rock and even Bill Maher said they won't perform on college campuses anymore because it's a political correctness. So if Bill Maher is bemoaning political correctness, what does that mean for somebody that might be a little more to the right? I don't know. But young people, man, you don't even realize. Let me tell you, snowflakes, lean in and listen. You don't realize what you've lost. You really don't, man. And we're losing a great deal in this country. But the idea of laughing at ourselves and others is one of the greatest losses of all. Can you imagine the founding fathers had to laugh once or twice during some of them meetings? I mean, otherwise they'd have probably hung themselves before the British did. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to our site, like it, and share it to other people. And by all means, keep looking on the sites. We appreciate all the various sites like Citizens for Trump and Deplorable site that are watching us. Deplorable Resistance. Thank you, Jay. And more to come. We've got more plans for you. We're going to get bigger and better than ever, and it's in most large part thanks to you, our listeners. So I greatly appreciate it. But above all else, like I tell you every day, have a blessed day.